इधर लाओ, इधर लाओ कुछ और बड़ा है,
Okay.
बड़ा लाओ कुछ।
Latif Ahmed Khan is joining. Okay, good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to this discussion being organized by Kashmir Policy and Strategy Group, which is a well-known citizen initiative for justice and conflict resolution. Its members comprise of eminent experts in public life, is recognized internationally and domestically as a foremost credible think tank. Now, today's topic is Jammu and Kashmir, transition from violence to democracy. We have a very experienced panel of speakers here who shall enlighten us with their views on the subject. And before I proceed, a few ground rules. We'll have 5 minutes for each speaker. We want to wrap up in 1 hour or 1 hour, 20 minutes. Interventions are allowed by the chair. Any questions we'll take at the end, we'll put them in the chat box and take them towards the end. And I would request everybody to be on mute unless you are speaking. And for everyone's information, we are recording this session. I will put it on net later on, send the link to all of you. So now today's discussion, now this gains importance in the light of several factors, especially the post-August 19 scenario, which is cropping up in every manifesto. Elections, especially assembly elections, have a checkered history in Kashmir. Now, be it, just give me a minute, Muzaffar Shahid. Hello? Hello? Shahzad, we're waiting for you to join.
Yeah, Band, ये बैठ गया मेरा। हाँ?
Yeah. We can wait up 10-15 minutes बाद join के लिए, whenever you're free, just join in. Right. Yeah. So, elections have a checkered history, be it the interference of center, the stifling of upcoming parties, or the rigging, as it's very famous. Now, we've come a very long way from election boycott to active participation. Now, this is evident from the fact that some of the boycotting forces themselves have joined the election fray.
Sure.
The past few weeks are packed with action, and some of us who are there on the ground know the action better than me. There's a dynamic shift across party lines, changing alignments, and a mushroom of independents and proxy candidates. The most frequent term that I've heard in the past 1 week is B party, C party. Almost everyone, barring the 3 major parties, have been dubbed as an ally of BJP at one time or the other. Now, this has become a very potent tool for undermining the opponents. Having said that, with almost around 900 contestants, the figure as of today I saw on the election website was 900 something, and a huge chunk of independent candidates, J&K assembly election is on the national radar. It's raising everyone's interest. Now, is this huge participation, huge numbers, especially we saw in the parliamentary election also, the voter turnout was very huge, very good, and we are expecting a better turnout this time. That's what I hear. So is this an indication of people having realized that it is a ballot which may kill the bullet ultimately? With this, I would hand over and I would request Bhan Saab, the chairman of KPSG, to start with the opening comments, opening discussion. Bhan Saab, over to you.
Thank you, Sunilji. Good evening, friends. It's a privilege to be one of the participants in this program. And my brief take on the subject is that the upcoming election in the territory of Jammu and Kashmir is not merely about who governs this troubled state, but about the broader struggle for restoration of the statehood and also the democratic process. And all the parties have promised to prioritize the restoration of statehood immediately after the elections, including the ruling dispensation and the local parties who are participating in this electoral process. As Sunil Vatalji rightly said that it's a transition from the cycle of violence we have seen for last 35 years, the mayhem and death and destruction in Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu still was peaceful, but of late you have seen that Jammu also has become victim of the violence and militants are there. Today also, when Prime Minister was addressing in Doda, in Kishtwar, there were 2 casualties of the armed forces engaged in confrontation and engaged in their operation with the militants. So everything doesn't seem to be hunky-dory, but the answer always to such turbulence and prolonged turbulence of 35 years is only the democracy, because democracy is the greatest leveler, greatest healer, and it gives a vent to your aspirations. And now that 35 years is too long a period in which a new generation has come up, and there are new voters now in Jammu and Kashmir who are the new age voters. And we have to very carefully watch that if the preference for them is democracy over the violence, to make their grievances known and addressed by a peaceful method, then it's a very big welcome change in the political landscape of Jammu and Kashmir. I I still feel that at the societal level, we have the cross section of the society of Jammu and Kashmir with us here. And at the societal level, I have been traveling to Kashmir, going village to village, going town to town. And I developed a feeling that this election could be turned into a celebration of democracy, a long awaited festival where the people of Kashmir assert their right to free and fair electoral process, a right that they were long denied and would continue to have been denied if it were not for the Supreme Court. Supreme Court was very emphatic in its judgment and in its opinion and in its assertion that 10 years is too long a period for the people of Jammu and Kashmir to wait for their legitimate democracy. So therefore, I value that judgment and I respect that judgment, and we all should compliment the Supreme Court for having done its job in this context. And Kashmir, according to me, after having interacted with lots of people in Kashmir recently, I have a sense that Kashmir at the societal level has come to terms with the fact that India as a nation state has come to stay here. And Kashmiris have realized that if the violence has to end, the only recourse is democracy. That is the only way to bring in peace. And peace and democracy is also, जैसे मैं हर तकरीर में कहता था कि Kashmir faced for these last 10 years a syndrome of silence, whether it was a coercive silence or it was a voluntary silence. That's also to be discerned. But how I interpreted it always, in my opinion, as a matter of resistance against that coercive silence was खामोशी है गुफ्तगू बेजुबां है ज़बां हमारी खामोशी है गुफ्तगू बेजुबां है ज़बां मेरी. So that was a kind of protest. So that silence which we have kept in our heart and mind for last long 10 years, we are seeing the expression of it. We saw the expression through democracy in the recent parliamentary elections by huge participation of the new age voters in the process. And now we are expecting the way the independents have mushroomed in the process of election. And also there is a lot of enthusiasm everywhere. And I see on the social media the lot of enthusiasm within the new age educated youth, uneducated youth, but youth form fundamental, basis of this festival of democracy. Therefore, it's a welcome change in a turbulent state. And there is one more factor that I found the societal acceptance and societal welcome for the return and rehabilitation of the exiled natives of Kashmir back to home. That's another factor because at the social level, at the religious level, at the religious leadership level, I saw people loudly saying that Kashmir is incomplete without the physical presence of its aborigine natives, the Kashmiri Pandits. So overall, when I look at the situation, I feel encouraged, and I have only one request to make to all the panelists here, that the fundamental principle of the democracy in the constitutional scheme of India is that governor's rule is always an exception.
Sure.
Election is the rule. And we have been denied this for last 10 years. And this is the time that Kashmiris have to exert that the general rule of democracy and constitutionalism must prevail. And Supreme Court has very loudly and very vividly and very assertively asked the State and Election Commission to hold the election, which is commencing. And I am happy that we have a right to choose our own representatives. And with an informed choice of our election, we are expected to choose the right representatives. Thank you, friends. These were my opening remarks.
Thank you, Banza. Very well said that this is more like a festival of democracy and people are taking it in that spirit. And I'll just move on now to Mr. Saraf, BL Saraf. Let's have your thoughts. Saraf sir.
ओके सर,
हाँ
आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ जी बिल्कुल.
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू सुनील जी, थैंक यू बान साहब for giving me this opportunity. When I read the theme of this today's discussion, violence to democracy, I have a different thing to say. Not that different from the crux of this subject, but as another, you can call it a different angle to it. Violence to democracy. Tashaddud se Jamhuriyat tak. We are putting it in end points, making Tashaddud a starting point and democracy an end point. It can't be that way. We can't put ends to it. You cannot club it together that way. Tashaddud Kashmir mein abhi hai. Violence is there because, to me, violence has two meanings. One is, you may call it active, you may call it other passive, which in legal parlance we call by conduct. Physical violence is undoubtedly ebbing out. It looks to be it has ebbed out. पत्थरबाजी नहीं हो रही है, मारामारी नहीं हो रही है सड़कों पर, लोग काम कर रहे हैं. This is a physical, to me it's a physical aspect. My assessment may be wrong, it is subject to correction. But the other point, from the other angle which I see the violence, it's a passive part that is very much there. How I explain it? By 2-3 just examples. I don't see their, and what you call an outright condemnation of violent acts which happened in Kashmir or around it. There's a killing of innocents, killing of Kashmiri Pandits, killing of army forces, killing of innocent Muslims. Kashmir civil society and people in general have not come openly to condemn it. To me, this is a concept of violence still lingering somewhere in their mind. मैं कश्मीरी पंडित हूँ, जब मैं कश्मीर जाता हूँ, कश्मीर हर साल जाता हूँ, मैंने 3-4 बार रहता हूँ वहां. जब मैं when I come back, most of my friends tell me, दोबारा भी आ जाना. Please mark my words. I say it with full responsibility. My friends tell me, दोबारा आना, we will welcome you. I'm yet to hear that somebody, क्यों जा रहे हो? Why are you going back? Unless it's transcends from कब आ रहे हो to क्यों जा रहे हो, to me violence is there. This is my reading. I'm subject to correction. And then when we see people coming out in thousands, just one aspect of electioneering, they come out and vote for a person who is in a jail. Well, he's entitled to fight election. He has fought election and he has won it. Congratulations to him. But what I see from it is people knew that he is not with us. He can't be with us. He can't do anything for us. They came out of it and voted for him. This was a passively violent expression against the forces of central government, which Kashmir have been bearing with, which Kashmir have been tolerating for a lot of time. This is another aspect of passive violence, which I call it. Unless I see it, people readily accepting what this is fait accompli now. Everybody knows this is fait accompli. India is there. India can't be thrown out. India will not leave Kashmir. They have done a lot of something which should not have been, but it is there. There is not acceptance of the idea of India, not Kashmir, which consistently are the same. To me, idea of Kashmir and idea of India coincide. They are same. But why is there a difference between difference of not acceptance of idea of Kashmir, idea of India in Kashmir? Vice versa. Unless that happens, violence is there. Now, coming to other part of democracy, it's a time we can discuss somewhere. Now, coming to the other point, this other word of that, tashaddud se Jammu tak, from violence democracy. Democracy doesn't mean elections alone. Election is a one small component of democracy, to me, and it comes at the last stage. First is respect for human rights, respect for dissent, respect of contrarian view, respect of absence of fear of saying what you want, fear of not saying what you don't want to say, and regard for civil rights, regard for human rights, regard for liberty, this because basic civil liberties. I don't think I can say that it has come to that level in Kashmir that where respect of wishes, not extraterritorial wishes. I am keeping it within. I am keeping everything within context of in Constitution of India. I'm not speaking extraterritorial. That cannot be tolerated. That has not to be actually tolerated. I won't watch for that. But within Constitution of India, what has been given to me, to Kashmiri, those I don't see some what you call that that some conscientious regard for those still developing in the minds of central government. It's the same way. People of Kashmir also have not developed a conscientious love for India so far, till now. I know I am what you call then optimistic. I'm writing that way. I'm a keen follower of Kashmir. It's a passion to me. I keep writing almost whenever I get occasion on this. But these are the facts of which stare our eyes. We can't be. हम आंखें मुंह नहीं ले सकते इनसे. Oh, then we can say it tashaddud se Jamhuriyat tak. Tashaddud in Kashmir has been in phases. It has started in 1990. One phase was up to 96. Then another phase started from 96 to 2008. From 2008 to 2014. 2014 to 2019. 2019 till today. In phases, there has been ebbing out of this physical violence, but Tashadud, in its there substance has never left Kashmir, at least till now. This is how I say it. Now, what is the way forward for it? It is easy to say, criticize something, to theorize something, intellectualize a certain point, but something, when I say, I have to say it. Unless we, government of India, who are the masters are not, people of India, see, treat Kashmiris not as special. That is gone. That cannot be brought back. Don't treat Kashmiris special, but treat Kashmiris equal. If you fight for equal rights in mainland, why don't you fight equal rights for Kashmir also? I'm telling this, posing this question to the people of India, and particularly government of India. Unless that concept develops, that once we see a violation of human rights being agitated in the mainland, till then we are living as it is. It will be all patchwork. It will be all bad. But what is presently happening is a positive side. I still take it positive. अगर violence कम हो गई है, अगर पत्थरबाजी नहीं हो रही है, people are coming in, you call them enthusiastically for voting, बड़ी वलवला खेस अंदाज में आ रहे हैं. This I take a positive sign for further improvement. For the time when I can really say we have left behind Tashadud, we have embraced democracy. Thank you, friends. It is for the time on this subject. If you give me some time, I may elaborate further on it. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Saraf Saab. That was very nicely put up. I think you went into the true definition of democracy and we brought in things like human rights and equality. Equality is something that we all need to uphold. With that, let's move over and let's hear from one of our friends who has had the recent experience of participating in the parliamentary election. We have Dr. Qazi Ashraf with us. So Dr. Saab participated in the parliamentary election, so he has a first-hand experience. So Dr. Saab, your thoughts?
Thank you. Thank you very much. So this topic, democracy, violence to democracy, is a very loaded topic if we look at the linguistic structure. But here, since Saraf Saab just raised a point of that violence started in 1990s, so I want to a little bit elaborate on the theme and then come to the subject. Now, first, let's take violence. It did not start in 1990s. The violence, if you just look at it in the perspective, you have to see it from a holistic vision that the violence has two factors, or two what you call environmental those forces which have led to the violence in Jammu and Kashmir, especially in the Valley of Kashmir. One is external forces and another is internal forces. We cannot put always the blame on the external forces. We have to also introspect a little bit. And let us start from the external forces. Now, right from 1947, after the partition of India and the dispute which was raised in terms of, or in accordance with Kashmir problem, there was a war with Pakistan, and after the war, Pakistan started the Gibraltar project, which failed. It did not fail because it was not well planned, or it was not, it didn't have the money supply and other resources. It failed because Kashmiris at that time were, majority of the Kashmiris were illiterate. Education was, the percentage of literacy was very low, and economically Kashmiris were downtrodden, and they were mostly agricultural laborers. So more than 80% of the people engaged with agriculture with a very low produce, because agriculture revolution, what you call the Green Revolution, was 10 years or at least 15 years ahead of that. So that was the reason. Then the ideological violence, which Saraf Saab said silent violence, ideological violence also began in 60s and 70s with the conception or inception of Jamaat-e-Islami. Now, we can notice one thing, that Maududi's ideology or Maududi's party miserably failed in Pakistan. To an extent, in 1970, Maududi had to resign from the chairmanship of Jamaat-e-Islami. But paradoxically, the same Jamaat-e-Islami could infiltrate in the hearts and minds of the people in Kashmir Valley. And why was that so? It was so because by the time the Green Revolution was there and the agrarian reforms were put up by Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah here, the things had changed. The literacy rate had risen. The educational standards had just gone up. The economic standards had gone up, and the ideas of Jamaat Islami were easy to disseminate throughout the society, because this is a fact which has been documented by the historians as well as the political scientists as well as the economists, that by the time the economic status of a society increases, the religious and ideological bigotry comes to dominate the society, and it's a fairly human process which has been seen throughout the periods of history. Now, in 1990s, the project succeeded. Project of violence succeeded. And then it little bit ebbed down by 1996 when Farooq Saab came into the electoral process. Now, at that time, people were also saying that democracy is going to prevail, but it didn't in the right sense of the word. It didn't. So, what are the reasons? So we cannot forget that the violence which happened from the interior aspect or the inferior perspective, we should not actually forget that when Sheikh Saab was deposed in 1953, that was the first massacre of democracy, and it was done not by Pakistan, it was done not by the people of Kashmir, it was done by the Delhi government. And it has been consistently seen throughout these 70 years that the government of Delhi and the deep state have been creating all the hurdles, and they have been just moving along that beaten track, which ultimately leads to the massacre of democracy. Now, how can you express democracy? The means of expressing democracy is electoral process. Now, processes, you find, especially now, you find that the people are participating after 10 years. See, the reason for the people's participation after 10 years, the reason that people are just coming towards the electoral process of democracy is, number one, the fall of Pakistan. Pakistan is no more economically stable country. That is number one. Number two, the hardliners also became convinced that with the abrogation of Article 370, although I have never agreed to the narrative that Article 370 was a special status for the Jammu and Kashmir. I have always argued against that. Now that Saraf Saab says that this is a special status and Kashmiris are special, I don't agree with this statement. And this statement is basically it's a faulty statement of saying that 370 never was a special status. When you remove 370, you ultimately get a union territory, right? Because Kashmir, J&K, to me, as far as my reading goes, legally I may not be correct, but de facto, if you look at de facto, Kashmir, J&K was never a complete state. It was a state with Article 370. And that means if you remove Article 370, you automatically become a union territory. Now there's a different you can say a discussion or dialogue. But 35A is very important. Now, why in this election the people are participating in huge numbers? The reason is that the people, especially the hardliners, they have come to understand that the reversal of the abrogation of 335A, not 370, 35A. Now, the reversal of the abrogation of 35A cannot be handled without resorting to non-violent means, because violence has been used so far. For 30 years, we have seen the violence. It has not given the results, the desired results. Now, these things, what the BJP government or the Modi era did, they played a psychological game. They removed Article 370, knowing fully well that this does not have any significance. But it will have a great psychological impact because along with 370, 35A also gets abrogated. So that created a psychological impact, that created a fear psychosis among the population of Valley of the Kashmir. Now that Jammu people also are not very happy with the abrogation of 35A, the things have a little bit changed. Now, that's why I see this huge participation in the electoral process. Now, as far as people who are like Rashid Saab, who is fighting from the jails, and the people have voted vehemently, and he has won his parliament election with huge margin, does not in fact tell us that this is an expression of violence. It will be a misstatement to make that this is an expression of violence. It's not. It is an expression of what you call just distancing ourselves from the violence, from the violent means of fighting out our legitimate rights and legitimate liberties. So that is how it has to be construed. It can be construed in other means because every person has his own, but I think all these things should be construed better in a historical context and from a historical perspective, not from an emotional point of view or an emotional perspective. That's number one. And then now the people are participating. Now tomorrow there will be legislators. Tomorrow there will be the assembly. The problem, as Bansab rightly put, is that throughout these 75 years, what has been happening is that governors are being invested with the powers who are meant to destabilize the governments. The governments, elections are being carried out to form the governments, and then the governors are being installed to destabilize the governments. Now, the LG in the present scenario has been given exemplary powers. Now, that means that CM, the Chief Minister of the State of the Union Territory, even if he has some, he is supposed to be responsible to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. But when you look at the powers of the LG, then I fail to understand how they are going to handle the whole governance of the UT. Now, what I feel is that the Delhi government is responsible for allowing the democracy and the democratic process to get fulfilled in the UT of Jammu and Kashmir, unless and until there is a change in the mindset of the deep state. I think all the elections will bring out the same results as have been previously seen. I think that is what I wanted to say in this context, and I think that is enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you, Dr. Sir. And very rightly said. I think one point we need to understand, the point that was made about Engineer Rashid's winning. I think we need to understand that there's a difference between violence and resentment. I would say
True.
it was more of an expression of resentment rather than violence.
Absolutely right.
I
I agree.
wouldn't classify it as violence, but resentment. And
I agree.
resentment and sympathy, and also people connecting at some level.
I agree with you.
Right. So thank you once again. And with that, we move over. We have just Mr. Muzaffar Shah has joined us, and he's had a very hectic schedule. I think I pulled him out from his campaign right now, so I'll not keep him waiting. So Muzaffar Shah sir, we would want to hear your thoughts on today's topic. And you're on mute. Shah Sahab, you're on mute. No, you are still on mute.
Still on.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Well, you really pulled me out. and I had promised Ban Saab, and I hope Ban Saab is there because I cannot see who all
No,
I
he's there. He's there.
He is there. Janab, adabas to everybody. Assalamu alaikum to everybody. If there is a Sardar, our friend, any Sat Sri Akal to him. Calling you from ground zero from here. So I had forgotten totally that today was your thing. It's just that you reminded me, and I pulled myself out. Thank you. I just barely heard Saraf Saab speak, and then I heard our Qazi Saab also talk. Well, I will say a few things, not stretch it more. That transition from violence to democracy, great. But what I see on the ground is very alarming in Kashmir. Alarming in the sense that we can talk about 370, we can talk about 35A, what some very valid points Qazi Sahab made, and some very special points Saraf Sahab made. I just heard these two speakers about human rights and constitutional framework and all. As you also know that I'm very deeply involved with the Supreme Court as far as 370 and 35A is concerned. That's a very long story, and that story is not over as yet. It's very much live. So coming back to this transition, your subject today, very good. People are really coming out, and today, like I have been on for the last 5 or 6 days, I've been going door to door for almost 8 hours in areas where you just could not move, you could not come in. So, and perhaps this time today, I have the distinction, and Bansa will be very happy to note that I am the one who is going door to door in those areas. I have still not seen anyone else come in there. And people are really coming out and pouring their hearts out. So as Kashmiris, I would like to tell you that we really need to help the people here. We need to help our return of Pandit brethren immediately into Kashmir. That's a very different subject, and all of us are involved in that, as you know very well, in different categories, in different forums, and we are also members of so many dialogues that take place. So keeping that also aside, and people do really want that we should get back to the pre-80, maybe go a little earlier, go to pre-85. And this is what I'm hearing from the ground. And what I was very, very alarming that I have seen, and I would like to report to all you brothers. And without any political baggage with me, I'm talking to you simply, plainly as a citizen. What I saw today, and which has to be really thoroughly examined and brought to an end, is the rampant drug menace that is destroying Kashmir. It is so fearful. If I tell you what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing with my own eyes, I cannot explain the position. I have seen a mother just yesterday who lost 2 of her sons in a span of 90 days. And she was begging our police, please take these both boys into custody, they will die. And our police did nothing about it. And as per official figures, I think today we are having a more serious problem than Punjab. I earlier thought that this was all more of a hype. There was drugs, there was this. But when I saw today, this is my 6th day on foot. My dear sirs, I think we have to take this matter up with the highest authorities. we have a serious crisis on hand. And this can be brutally struck down, provided the local police gets into action. It has nothing to do with anybody else. It is the local CID, it is the local police, the local SHO. Stone pelting is gone, but I am reporting directly to you that stone pelting has been replaced by drug peddling. This is a very serious issue, sir. And today, people are coming out in hundreds, and I must be meeting almost 3,000 to 4,000 to 5,000 people a day. I'm shaking hands with people in the areas where political people don't, they fear to, even put their foot down there. But guys are coming out, women are coming out, and they are saying, please, please pull us out of this mess. They are coming out to vote for one simple reason, that they want a people's government there, whosoever comes, it does not matter. They want a people's government to be immediately replaced by a central rule, wherein our Jammu and Kashmir is being run by people mostly who are from outside the state. They have no clue about Jammu and Kashmir. I was in the civil secretariat yesterday. I thought it was like a mini, maybe a concentration camp. There was nobody there. There were no people there. Earlier, secretariat was, you could not find place to even put your foot down. But it was empty. Honestly, I'm telling you. And there is no politics involved in this. There is no connect. We may give hype. We are having this scheme, that scheme. We are doing this. We are doing all sorts of things. But what I see today of Srinagar city, which is the heart of Kashmir, Srinagar city, sirs, is crying for help. We all need to put our heads down, and we got to help our people to come out of this deep, deep crisis. And number two is that I would really not go into 37 and 35A today. We have the number of, I would like to report that the number of official figures of these drug addicts in Kashmir Valley is 24 lakhs. 2.4 million. Sir.
It has risen.
It is terrible. That's one part of it. The second part is that I think we really have to, what I was very impressed by what Saraf Saab said on civil liberties and human rights. I don't think, and I would not mince my words. If I tomorrow have a meeting with the Honorable Prime Minister or the Honorable Home Minister, I would tell them on their face that, sir, democracy stops at Lakhanpur. It does not come in here. Human rights stop there. Anybody, a small policeman can get into your home. He can ask your guy to report. And every time you have to report, almost a couple of times a week, he can make you report, he can make you dance. This is the current situation right now. I would say, good that we are having elections after 10 years, which means that Election Commission of India saw that things are right. We can go for elections. We are going in for elections. Thank God, nobody of us has been attacked till now. And I hope that nobody gets attacked or nobody gets killed. Then, and it can happen anytime, sir. The situation, what I see, the places that I was moving around since the last 3 or 4 days, well, anything can happen. So what I could just wrap up on this matter is, I have one more very alarming data, because we were talking something about Engineer Rashid. Though I know the guy personally, I'll only say 2 things, which I have said publicly yesterday, day before yesterday. I personally welcome his release. The court has released him, fine. I also decry those guys, and I also don't agree with those people who label him as an agent of this A, B, C, D, because we have a, this is an habit here in Kashmir. We immediately label people. Either he is from ISI, or he is from IB, or now he is from both. He's double crosser. So, but I posed this question to their leadership, that you say that the gentleman was in jail for 5 years. Big deal. That's not a big deal. My father was in prison for 17 years. My grandfather for 22 years. And so many of the Plebiscite Front and the real National Conference, of which I am also one of the small, tiny, maybe a piece. For 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. And that thing's okay. But today, I want to remind all of us, even the Engineer Rashid's, these people who do his canvassing and all, there are 42,000 people who are in jails of Kashmiris in and outside Jammu and Kashmir. But the alarming point is, out of these 42,000, now this is data I'm giving you. I'm sharing a data, like I shared the data on this drug menace. Out of these 42,000, very close to 26,000 to 27,000 are those people who are without trial, no conviction. And they're youngsters. 20, 24, 30, 40, like that. And their number is 27,000, sir. And they are in jails for 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, 12 years, 3 years, 7 years. So there is no big deal if you are in jail for 5 years. Doesn't matter. This is a part and parcel of Kashmir. So I think we need to come forward. Like I was talking about the Election Commission, I suddenly switched on to Engineer Rashid. I forgot. Maybe I was too tired. But one more thing I want to say. Election Commission of India found that Jammu and Kashmir is fit for assembly elections after 10 years. Which means the situation on the ground is fine. I would like to remind through this webinar, if the Home Minister of India will hear it, and I'm sure he will, he promised on the floor of the House on 5th and 6th August 2019, when we were all put under house arrest and we were released after 8 to 9 months. He promised on that day that we will return the statehood as soon as things are stabilized in Kashmir. Honorable Home Minister, we are holding elections to the Legislative Assembly. Election Commission of India has given a clean chit. I think you should not waste time before the first ballot is cast or the first button is pressed. Would you be kind enough to restore statehood to Jammu and Kashmir? It will go a long way. Would you be kind enough to release these 27,000 people who are without trial in the jails? That'll be great. Would you be kind enough to let us sit with our Pandit brethren and make a proper arrangement for their return to Kashmir? Kashmiris really want the Pandit brethren to come back. No police will help us. No army will help us. No state will help us. It is the common person. It is the common Pandit, the common Muslim who has to embrace each other. And for that, we have to work, all of us, without any baggage, without any political exigencies or emergency, or whatever you may call it. These are the three things I want to say today, sir. And give us a chance sometime else. Let us have more of these things. We will share more data, more views. I had something more to say, but that will take a lot of time. And I thank Vatal Saab, Sunil ji, Ban Saab, all of you, that you gave me a chance to, and you heard me out. Thank you. God bless. And we are there to help out whenever and need be. We are there, and we want these things to be settled. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shahzad. I think something very alarming that you pointed out was the drug menace, and probably we may want to look at that separately. That would not fit in with today's theme, but yes, it's an alarming situation. There are a lot of reports coming out about the drug menace, but you also pointed out about the 42,000 people lying in jails, and that's again something very, very important that you pointed out. And as I was earlier telling Dr. Kazi, it is those 42,000 families who probably identified themselves with Engineer Rashid when they sort of supported him. So with that, I'll just move over to Mr. Ashok Ogra. Ogra Saab, over to you. Can we have your thoughts, please?
Can you hear me? Namaskar. Adab.
Adab, Janab, Adab, Janab,
Adab.
Adab.
Adab was wonderful to see you. I know you are in election.
Yeah, Janab, kari yuti Kashmir. Aise go one time go
I know. Post elections. Promise.
Okay. Welcome.
You know, I get a sense from listening to four participants, there is this great hope of the word democracy. It is a prerequisite. It is a necessary requisite. But democracy by itself never in the world guarantees peace and prosperity.
It's true.
Unless the democratic process is infused with calories of great governance. So otherwise, without calories, democracy has no meaning. It is what John Galbraith said long back, referring to Indian democracy. He said it is 50-50 democracy. And he didn't say 50-50 as F-I-F-T-Y, but P-H-I-F-T-Y. So I think we need to keep that in mind, that while the election is a transformative process, but unless that the elections are held, the government takes over, and the government then adopts a governance model which is truly reflects the people's hopes and aspirations and addresses them. It would be a failure, and perhaps people may go back and remember the governor's rule was even better. And this has not happened just in Kashmir. This has happened elsewhere in the state, in the country, and this has happened elsewhere in the world. And we saw the recent example of what happened in Bangladesh, how people celebrated the ouster of a democratically elected prime minister. So I think I just wanted to put a word of caution there, but let me deal with three critical aspects that I see. And very briefly, one is that going by the past record of the election commission in the state, of the elections being held, which were fraudulent, rigged, and so on, one does hope that this time the elections would be fair, free and fair, because only if the elections are held in free and fair manner as they were done in the rest of the country, would the elected representatives have the legitimacy in the eyes of the people. And that is very, very important, because unless they carry that legitimacy with the people, then they wouldn't have any say in their affairs. Now, second, let me reflect on more, which I refer to as the governance. because when a newly established government is formed, which is recovering from insurgency, violence of the last 30, 34 years, and terror still facing it on its face, it confronts many challenges. It's not that easy. But yet the expectations of the people would be that everything would be resolved in next 6 months. It doesn't happen. And that is where the disappointment will step in. And once the disappointment steps in among the people, then you're back to, they take in the recourse to gun and violence and so forth. Because in Kashmir, the moment there is disappointment with the government, it is blamed on the central government for whatever reasons, and people will recourse. Therefore, success for any new government, whichever government is installed, will depend on the commitment of one and all supporting the development of democratic institutions. And Saraf Saab made a very valid point. I loved his expression of longing of Kashmiri Pandits, but also he made a very valid point with respect to human rights. So fostering inclusive dialogue, that's very important. And addressing underlying grievances and inequalities that exist in the society. Number 3, human rights and freedoms. And unless these democratically elected government, whenever it is formed, whoever forms it, uphold the human rights and civil liberties across the people, across the communities, particularly disadvantaged groups, particularly minority groups, and long-lasting, ensure the long-lasting related freedom of expression and assembly, it will fail the test of the real what democracy really stands for. And then there must be proper checks and balances to prevent the abuse of power, because we have this great history in J&K of corruption being at a very high level, even when we had elected governments. The learning from there, I think we need to be a bit cautious, a bit careful, and have a proper checks and balances to ensure that that doesn't get repeated. But as I said, elections are important. It empowers citizens. It involves them directly in the political process and gives them a stake in the future of their state. But all of the above, as I said, depends on the style of governance tasked to govern and its commitment to eradicate corruption and improve efficiencies, particularly in public affairs, of health, of education, of road, of transport, of law and order. And it's very alarming to listen to my friend Muzaffar Shah of the drug menace and drug. This is truly that. Unfortunately, we seem to be replacing Punjab in an area where we should not be number one. Secondly, with the installation of the elected government, the state must continue to experience violence from militant groups. It must expect, of separatist factions, and yet have the mechanism to negotiate those. That is very important, because if it becomes complacent that now that we are elected, we have been this thing, there'll be no violence, I think that would be perhaps a mistaken belief, because Pakistan would try to fish in its troubled waters. Because remember, a wounded tiger is more dangerous, and Pakistan currently suffering as it is as a nation is a wounded tiger, and Pakistan army to regain its legitimacy in Pakistan itself will try to rake up Kashmir violence as much as to show its people that it's settled, though it doesn't admit it officially. Therefore, the new government would need to rebuild trust in state institutions, address ongoing threats, and prevent remaining insurgents from regrouping. That's a very important thing. How does the new government, democratically elected government, ensure that there is no regrouping of the old militants and insurgent groups, and finding new recruits, means ISI finding new recruits? How do you stop that? So that calls for a better governance, better dialogue with everybody. Let me now touch upon what concerns me the most, which others haven't done, except Saraf Saab, perhaps expected, our return to the valley. And that must be the third component of, and I know how keen Muzaffar Shah is on this. We meet quite often. He is more anguished seeing our plight than even we are, because we seem to have got used to certain comforts, but comforts and nostalgia are two different things. At the very outset, let me state very boldly that migrants are not just numbers. They're individuals with dreams, they are individuals with aspirations, and they are individuals with their own stories. That's very important to remember. Therefore, living a migrant life involves settling and unsettling experience. It is both. We are settled at one level, but we are unsettled at another level. Whether relocating by choice or force, the loss of a homeland can lead to a longing that goes from minor to traumatic. For Kashmiri Pandits, including me, including Ban Sahib, including Sunil Wadhar, including Sarab Sahib, including many thousands others out there, forced to migrate en masse in 1990, the pain of missing out comes out very strongly. And this migratory mourning, a term coined by, I think it was Italian or Spanish psychiatrist, Joseph, some name very difficult to pronounce, are the emotions associated with losses that are caused by migration. Migratory mourning, that you have migrated, but you're still mourning. Thus, many KPs live and survive, like most of us in Gurgaon and Delhi and elsewhere, between assimilation and resistance to the new place. We have been assimilated by the new place, but we also resist the new place. I belong here, yet I don't belong here. I belong here, but I long for the valley. So therefore, privileges such as better migration status that the new government must ensure may elevate the experiences. They do not guarantee the absence of pain, the pain of life lie behind. This is particularly true of older generation, like us, who continue entertaining fond memories of Kashmir that was before 1990. Therefore, ensuring the return of Pandit migrants to their homeland must become the top priority, one of the top priorities, I must admit. There are other top priorities, drug menace, unemployment, winning the hearts and minds of the people for the new government. And to do that, there has to be a greater empathy and understanding of where Pandits have gone, what Pandits have gone through. I do find that it remains at a very surface level that we are missing you. But that empathy needs to be slightly more emotional, more deeper, both in meaning and its interpretation. What forced them to leave their homeland? What they expect to encourage and what will expect them to encourage them to return to merge Kashmir, as they would say it. Similarly, I must say, the time has come for Pandits to display greater understanding of the suffering of the majority of the community during the last 35 years or so. So it must be both. There has to be a greater acknowledgement, but except the only caveat I would add here is that the majority community has to take a greater lead, play a greater role in this. Otherwise, the responsibility of Pandits also to acknowledge the suffering has to be there. But remember, Pandits lost their homeland, they lost the soul, they lost the civilization. Muslims are suffering. So there is a fundamental difference with the two. I'm not making a comparison, but there is you can overcome the sufferings and recover. But if you have lost your civilization, you have lost it forever. So that's the fine difference. Therefore, we must engage the government must engage in dialogue with Pandit representatives to address historical grievances and ensure that their concerns are heard and addressed. Because an elected government doesn't have to be a majoritarian government, but that must reflect even those who may perhaps not have voted for them. By addressing the historical grievances, ensuring safety, providing economic and social support, and fostering community engagement, the government can facilitate a successful and honorable return process. That is, it can initiate and start that. It is not. It's not like a band-aid. It's not like it's not like an antibiotic treatment. It's a process that will take time. At the end, the Pandits want to feel secure, and they would also the majority of the Pandits that I meet, they don't want to live in ghettos. They want to live together with Muslims and intermingle with them on a daily basis. Let me be very clear on this. There is no point going back to the ghettos, because you don't only belong to a place which has a good climate. We are not going to Kashmir for just good climate. We are going to Kashmir for what Kashmir stands for, what its elements of civilizational angles are, which is beyond climate, which is people, which is cuisine, which is streets, which is smells, which is sounds, which is sights. So unless there is that unfettered freedom, we may be living in a ghetto jolly well, then we are staying in a hotel. There is perhaps no difference between the two. So we need to make that distinction. And so we need to reinvigorate the Kashmiriyat. Many of my Kashmiri friends may not like this word. They find it that it was coined by the majority community, but I still think that it has tremendous value. And to me, it is more a cultural concept. It is a way of life that embodies the value of tolerance, inclusiveness, and mutual respect. And the new government, therefore, must involve Pandit community leaders and representative in planning and implementation to ensure that solutions are aligned with their needs and aspirations. At the end, let me quote what William Watson Sapphire, I think, in one of her books on migration, said that no one leaves a home. No one leaves a home unless home is the mouth of a shark. No one leaves a home unless the home is the mouth of a shark. And we need to ensure that we remove that fear, we remove this thing, and start a peace process and a dialogue process wherein we all can live together again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ogra Sahab. Very, very informative and very enlightening. And I wish it doesn't remain the mouth of the shark anymore. Let's hope
that
for
is the hope.
Yes. Okay. So with that, I would now request Dr. Raj Nehru to speak a few words. He joined us, Dr. Raj Nehru joined us a little bit late. So,
my voice audible?
Raji, yeah, you are audible, but we can't see your face.
Sir,
Video is off.
Yeah, visuals are not there because I'm back from Delhi. I was in a meeting. तो गाड़ी में हूँ, यहाँ अंधेरा है.
Okay.
Please bear with me. I
Right.
can just show for a second my face.
Right.
So, but please be
Raj, those who are in the dark can speak more freely.
That's what is coming from your side, sir. The light is coming from the other side.
I know.
So, Raji, I think your signal is bad. आप वीडियो बंद कर लीजिए, right? हाँ.
अभी मेरी voice audible है?
Now it is audible. You need to be a little bit louder.
Okay. So let me try this way. Just one second. Let me. इसकी आवाज बंद कर दो. अभी आवाज ठीक आ रही है सर?
हाँ, बिल्कुल ठीक है. Now it is good.
ठीक. So I had the opportunity to hear Shah Sahab, and then I had the opportunity to hear Ogra Sahab a little bit. And while I was hearing them, I agree to what uh, Ogra sahab said. He was talking about democracy. I agree with what he said, that democracy may not be a perfect solution uh, all the time, but when you have to choose between two things, two good things or two wrong things, you always have to choose one, because you can't say we won't choose anything. So democracy definitely is an option between the two wrongs. Despite its imperfections, uh, I think it offers a opportunity and and a system where we can have a governance which is based on the will of the people. So it not only has the will of the people. I think it also has an element where it gives an opportunity for people to prove their competence and accountability towards the society. Those who jump into the fray of getting elected and serving the society. So my first thing is, I think we have seen last 10 years, and we have also seen what has happened in last couple of years. Um, what I feel, this time it is a true test for many people who will get the opportunity to serve uh, J&K once again. And this time, it is something what I feel, that whether they are truly wanting to make a change in Jammu and Kashmir, and that change is for the betterment of society, rather than again having certain situations emerging in Jammu and Kashmir where people uh, sometimes get driven and pushed to different thought processes rather than the development. So I think this time the the leaders, whosoever will tomorrow uh, have that opportunity to serve people, they must keep in mind that enough uh, has happened in Jammu and Kashmir, and now can we change the direction of Jammu and Kashmir towards growth, progress, and development? Can that be the agenda of people? And while saying that, it means that, are we truly interested in the right education of our generations there? Are we interested in development of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, where we can have inclusive development of everyone, every person in the society, and where we are committed to reduce the violence in Kashmir? We have seen the some form. I was listening to Shasa when he said that the stone pelting has disappeared, but the drug peddling has gone up. So leaders who come in, if they are really committed, are they really committed to make sure that the violence doesn't come back, and this another form of violence, which is the psychological violence going, and that is being treated through new drug system, can that be taken out of the society? I think there are many more challenges, because Jammu Kashmir going for again a democratic process. We have uh, so many people watching us from different parts of the world, and for them, any kind of stability in Jammu and Kashmir is not suiting them. And we, as people who are creating or enabling or facilitating these debates, and the leaders who will have the opportunity to serve, they must be aware of this, that if the long term security of Jammu and Kashmir has to be ensured, we also have to make sure that neither they or neither the people or neither any of their teams uh, get influenced by uh, any of such people who have interest in Jammu and Kashmir, not for the development, but for destabilizing or harming the interests of people. I think Jammu Kashmir has phenomenal potential as a person who has worked in skill and employment in the last couple of years, and I have been traveling regularly to Jammu and Kashmir. I know Jammu and Kashmir has tremendous potential. Unfortunately, we have not been able to leverage that. The youth is highly talented. They have got a lot of capacities and capabilities. I think right channels need to be brought in to help these youngsters to move up, uh, move up on their potential and provide them. So the youth engagement is very important. I think if we are able to focus on this new generation, new youth, help him to get connected with developed thought process rather than uh, a diseased thought process. I think we will serve the society even better. So that's one thing. On the cultural and social harmony, I think Ogra Sahab was talking about, and Shah Sahab also said, the return of Kashmiri Pandits. I think it's a full circle point. I'll tell you why. It's not about Kashmiri Pandits coming back, and it's not an issue. The issue is that the way they had to face the exodus, they were forced to move out, and the world saw that. And after that, what happened in Kashmir, we have seen that what has happened, how people have suffered. But the starting point of the circle is how a minority community with the kind of social consciousness at that time had thrown this community out or had pushed them or they had to be forced to go out. I think there is a need to make sure that the same social consciousness has to rethink and see how this minority comes back into the Kashmir. And that will again send the same, that will again provide them the same opportunity of conveying to the world that the Kashmir is changing. So it's not about Pandits returning. It's about returning back to that point where we had started, where this entire Kashmir crisis started in 1989. And if the emerging collective consciousness of Kashmir comes to that level where this issue is reconciled and this issue is resolved, I think it will send a bigger message, and that message will open up the opportunities and pathways for social and cultural harmony within Kashmir as well. Uh, I think I personally feel that's a very big issue. While most of the people who have left Kashmir after 1990, irrespective of which faith they belong to, I'm sure they would have created great opportunities for themselves. But there is a message in waiting that if we are able to regroup all of them who left Kashmir because of this violence, if that turning is brought in Kashmir, I think that will be a fantastic piece of work we will be able to do. And it will not happen by government. I think governments won't be able to do such things. And governments can never do such things. They have their own interests. I think there's a social consciousness that need to be awakened. And forums like these, more and more such discussions and debates, they need to happen in Kashmir. The society, the youth, the youngsters, they need to come forward. I think that is something which will pave a new or a new dawn will rise in Kashmir. So so I think uh, this is a great opportunity. We need to encourage people to participate in this democratic process. We need to engage with more and more people. We need to make sure that the rhetoric and reality, this gap is bridged. And there are tendencies who have a tendency to create rhetoricism, but there is a reality which many people cannot see, and it's our duty to help the society see the reality and bridge that gap. and let the people recognize what is good for them in the long run, and stay away from the religious frenzy and all that indoctrination that happens from all corners. And let's have that Kashmir's voice, that Kashmiriyat or Koshurat, whatever we call it, back in Kashmir, and live peacefully. And let the new generation that we will be having, the posterity, they remember us for ages, that at least this generation of ours, help them to bring back what we used to cherish many decades back. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, thank you, Raji. I think one thing is very clear, that there needs to be a lot of introspection in what went wrong, and as you rightly pointed out, to bring out the social consciousness, and for people to see if we can sort of reverse the clock and go back to the point in time where all of it started getting wrong. So, and major thing is youth empowerment. I fully agree with you that yes, democracy is the beginning point for youth empowerment and youth engagement. So with that, let's move over, and in the interest of time, we'll need to keep it very fast now. We have Arshid Bashir, Advocate Arshid Bashir with us. Arshid Saab?
Yes,
Over to you.
good evening. Am I audible? Good evening,
Yes.
sir.
Yes.
Well, it was quite enlightening to listen all the speakers. Since the topic which we are discussing, the non-violence to democracy, lest we forget that elections are one of the facets of the democracy.
Arshid Saab, can you put on your video
Okay,
if the signal is okay?
hello?
Right.
Yeah, sorry. See, while we see the genesis of the present non-violence in Kashmir, it emanates from the elections of 1989, by and large. So if we relate the present elections would somewhat will completely vanish the non-violence from the state, I think we are expecting too much from these elections then. As we are discussing the present scenario, through this conference, we know that there are two encounters which happened today only, one in Doda and another in district Baramulla, where I am presently staying. See, as we know that the democracy, as we define it, is a government by the people, for the people, of the people, and the elections is the process through which it gets manifested. We live in a federal system where the federal entities are to be respected. If we see in 2019 what happened, being the part of the largest democracy of the world, the way Article 370 was abrogated, no citizen of India would have ever expected it, given the pride, given the pride we had for the democratic setup of India. Nonetheless, I don't want to sound skeptic, but if we see the jubilation that we see on ground is a positive sign. The joining of Jamaat Islami, not directly because they are banned, but they are backing some candidates. It is very encouraging. If not in the present time, but definitely this is an indication that even in the future, in the coming years, things may change, and we may see the non-violence completely vanishing, be it in its active form or in its passive form. And more than that, we see why these elections. I am very I'm expecting a lot from these elections, not in the political sense, because I know it's quite a complex issue, the Kashmir issue, what we generally call. It has many stakeholders in it. Unless and until all of them come on the table and discuss it amicably among themselves, nothing is going to change on ground in real sense. No election is going to bring any drastic change in real sense. We all are aware of this fact. But at the same time, do we have to perceive the present elections in complete in a skeptic sense, in a negative sense? The answer is no, because as I already said, there are certain happenings, certain indicators in the present election process, which are instilling hope in the youth, in the generation who have been at crossroads in the past 20, 30 years, in the sense that, as I said, I repeat, because the term Jamaat Islami is quite, I won't say a dreadsome, but definitely something which we don't have the clear idea about what their political ideology essentially is based on. But since they are participating in the elections, they are backing certain candidates. So it is definitely a positive indication, and more so, the elections are being held after a period of 10 years, because in a democratic setup, there has to be a rule by the elected representative. The government has to be an elected one, not the imposed and selected one, which we have quite often seen in our state, especially in the past 10 years. So if we not expecting something large from the present elections, as I said, the resolution of Kashmir issue, but definitely this definitely will bring some relief. It will to the people of the valley. It will definitely give them a reason. It will give them a reason to express their anguish, which is very essential in a democratic setup. Otherwise, we know, if we are not able to express our thoughts, our aspirations, our views, we know the only thing that remains, the only thing that the masses resort to is violence. So if the present elections, although it should have become voluntarily, the government on its own should have held the elections had their intentions been so clear. By government, I mean the central dispensation. It took the indulgence of Honorable Supreme Court that they are holding the elections in the valley, in the state union territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Nonetheless, a good omen. I won't. There are a couple of other issues that are being discussed. There's a Kashmiri Pandits issue. There's a drug menace. They definitely are the serious concerns which are equally important, if not more or less. But still, I would stick to the point that for all the issues to settle, for all the issues to come to rest, which have been there since last 35 years, the democracy has to see its real face in Kashmir. We have to see the democracy as it is not only written in the books, or it is in practice. As I said, it is in the elections is not the only facet, only manifestation of the democracy. There are a lot of other issues that essentially is why the electorate is taken on board for every decision making. So I hope, and I'm quite optimistic about the present elections, that if not, there isn't any end to the non-violence. As I said, that the 1989 elections is somewhere the way they were rigged. It gave the reasons for the present, the violence, the complete continuous chain of violence that we have been observing since then. It is the elections only. But as I said, I don't want to sound skeptic and taking positives from it in whatever, be it in the shape of breadcrumbs. But then we need to appreciate the government has taken this initiative. This was a long overdue. We, being the citizens of India, deserve equal treatment. We deserve to live in the open atmosphere where we are able to express our opinions, where we are able to have our where we have the right to elect our representatives who can represent us in the different forums of different democratic institutions, so that we are able to live a dignified life. That's all I have to say right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Arshid. In the interest of time, let's move fast. And I'll move over to Mr. Salim Jilani. He joined us a little bit late, but we've been very eager to hear him. Salim Saab, can you hear us? I think he can't hear us. Moving forward, Yasmin. Can I call upon Yasmin to join us? Yasmin ji?
Hello, good evening.
Yes.
Assalamu
Yasmin ji,
alaikum,
your
everyone.
thoughts? Yeah.
Yes.
5 minutes,
So-
quick.
Yes. So I think everyone has discussed very well what's going on right now, what's happening. Saraf Saab has clearly said, Tashaddud se Jamhuriyat, democracy is not election. He said clearly, kyunki respect of rights, that is civil rights and human rights, which is more important. If we go back to the abrogation of Article 370, the rights has been snatched. Nobody is able to speak. Even the people are not able to protest for the power bills nowadays. So this is a big challenge for everyone. I think Kashmiri word is downgrading day by day. We are not able to protect anybody's rights. Either it will go to the female rights, it will go to the male rights, or anybody's rights. Coming to the elections, everyone is saying we will bring back to the Kashmiri Pandits. Even being a citizen of the Kashmir, we are welcoming to bring, we are ready to bring back to the Kashmiri Pandits. But it's the really Kashmiri Pandit youth. We have to settle down a Kashmiri Pandit youth in Kashmir. We have to create a jobs for those people, Kashmiri Pandit youth people. If the government doesn't have jobs for the Kashmiri Muslims who are right now, people are without jobs. A lot of people are without employment. We are ready. Tomorrow, it will be a huge issue for the government. So bringing back to the Kashmiri Pandits, it's a good step, but to giving them a protection, it's a big challenge. Kashmir has always in political instability, military operations, security issues. If the Kashmiri Pandit, who is working in a Microsoft company, he will come back to the Kashmir, there will be the internet shutdown. So what he will do? I think we have to look for those challenges first, which is more important. If somebody is working in a Medanta, he has to take a video conferencing with a patient. There will be the internet shutdown. What he will do? We need an entrepreneurs who will give a job security for the youth. There is an entrepreneurship in the Kashmiri youths. But for that, we have to bring back the security. We need to give them a security. We need to give them environmental protection. Right now, we are seeing a lot of issues in environmental issues in Kashmir. If this elected government will come, first, how they rebuild the trust of the youth. This is a big challenge. They have to protect, they have to fight for the rights first. They have to fight for the state rights. They have to fight for the rights. They are not able to do anything without the consent of the government. So there is not only one challenge, there is a lot of challenges. Even they have to fight for the prisoners who are languished in the jails. So it's not the only the people, the elected representatives, it is the government who have to support the Kashmiri Pandits as well as the elected representatives. So there will be the prosperous Kashmir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yasmin. I think one point we want to make here, I would want to make here is that we are past the era of internet shutdowns. That's what we are debating today. We're talking about empowerment. We're talking about moving to democratic setups, and which does not entail internet shutdown and the like. And as Rajji pointed out earlier, youth empowerment and youth engagement is going to be very, very important. Unless we engage youth, we can't go ahead with it, right? With that, moving on, I would request Imtiaz Chasti Saab. We have Imtiaz Chasti Saab here, and Imtiaz Saab, would you want to add some thoughts?
जी आदाब सुनील जी
Yes,
और
Adab.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम और आदाब टू एवरीवन हियर
Hmm.
मैं अनलाइक पैनल से सुन रहा था, अभी बहुत अच्छी बातें हुई है, लेकिन उसमें कुछ मुझे लगा कि ये बातें ज्यादा एड्रेस की गई थी गैलरी को, और जो रियल इश्यूज हैं उसको हम शायद दिल खोल के एड्रेस नहीं कर पा रहे। वायलेंस टू डेमोक्रेसी 96 में हुआ। आज हम ये जो पावर को वापस दिया जा रहा है, 5 साल तक पावरलेस कश्मीरी को इन मील्स इन स्मॉल पीसेस पावर वापस दिया जा रहा है। ये ट्रांजिशन है। फ्रॉम वायलेंस टू डेमोक्रेसी वाज 96। तो इसमें बहुत सारे इश्यूज हैं इस वक्त, और जो इस वक्त इलेक्शन की बात हम कर रहे हैं डेमोक्रेटिक, जिसको हम बता रहे हैं कि लोग सेलिब्रेट कर रहे हैं। अभी किसी ने बता दिया जो पार्लियामेंट इलेक्शन हुआ तो उसमें सेंटिमेंट क्या था। इसमें हर किसी की अपनी अपनी राय हो सकती है, लेकिन मेनली अगर हम देखेंगे इस वक्त कश्मीर का यूथ जो है, जो 90s के बाद का यूथ है, वो बहुत पॉलिटिकली मैच्योर हुआ है। आज इस डेमोक्रेटिक प्रोसेस को वही जो एक ट्रेडिशनल वोट बैंक है किसी भी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी का, वो एंजॉय कर रहे हैं। जो फ्लोटिंग वोट या जो फर्स्ट टाइम वोटर, even a 60 years old man can be a first time voter because he has not participated in the democratic process. अभी जो हो रहे हैं कि जो इस वक्त की डेमोक्रेटिक प्रोसेस की अर्थमेटिक्स है, that is much worrying for the Kashmiris than getting their democratic rights. They are much worried about the arithmetics of the results. So I think अभी एक एडवोकेट साहब शायद बोल रहे हैं कि 89 में कोई इलेक्शन नहीं हुआ था, इट वाज 87। तो ये इलेक्शन है, मुझे लग रहा है कि जब तक इसके रिजल्ट्स का या जो प्रोसेस चल रहा है, जिस तरीके से हम देख रहे हैं कि उथल पुथल क्या हो रही है, पॉलिटिकल उथल पुथल, आई डोंट थिंक इट इज मच डिफरेंट दैन दैट इलेक्शन। फर्क इतनी है कि आज पावरलेस से थोड़ा पावर मिल रहा है, वहां पे एक क्योस था। रही बात जो हमने बता दिया, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर, पीस, सब कुछ आएगा इस इलेक्शन के बाद, लेकिन वी फॉरगेट इज द यूटी। Policing will remain under Home Minister. So जो भी चीफ मिनिस्टर बने, उसके पास लॉ एंड ऑर्डर का कोई इख्तियार नहीं हो। वो एक कांस्टेबल को क्या एक एक एसपी से नीचे को ट्रांसफर कर सकते हैं, लेकिन एसपी डीएसपी लेवल के ऊपर किसी को ट्रांसफर भी नहीं कर सकता। ये पावर्स रहेंगे हमारी चीफ मिनिस्टर। सो लॉ एंड ऑर्डर को अगर गॉड फॉरबिड कुछ इधर उधर हुआ तो ऑल ब्लेम विल बी ऑन चीफ मिनिस्टर, जैसे हमने दिल्ली में देखा, जबकि ही विल नॉट बी टेक्निकली रेस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर इट। So this election, I think it is more dangerous than the previous elections. We should think, realistically और decide एक अच्छी तरीके से सोच समझ के, not on the party basis। आज हमें वोट एक इंडिविजुअल को देख के करना चाहिए। इंजीनियर रशीद की बात हुई है अभी, इंजीनियर रशीद की पार्टी रजिस्टर्ड पार्टी नहीं है, चाहे वो 2, 3, 4, 5 सीटें लेके जाएंगे, जितने भी सीटें लेके जाएंगे, क्वेश्चन नहीं। सो जब आज पहल रोस्ती पहल बचाव सो तम सद सीट ज्यादा वनरेबल, एंड दोज सीट्स विल डिस्टर्ब द electoral process after the results in forming the government. So that is the concern of the common Kashmir. So we should address those things and keep in mind that democracy is okay. लेकिन जो सराफ साहब ने बता दिया active and passive violence still is there. If it is not, I mean, if it is no, blood is not oozing, but somewhere it is paying. It is not the bullet only who is the, I mean, we can say the violence उससे हो रही है. Even the words can be weapons, as said by UN. The words can be weapons. So we are getting जो इस वक्त हमें जो जख्मी हो रहा है वो हम एम्यूनिशन से नहीं है, किसी गन से नहीं है, किसी बुलेट से नहीं हो रही है, इस वक्त हम बातों से हो रहा है. तो वो जख्म आज भी लग रहे हैं कि वायलेंस आज भी है. थैंक यू.
Okay, thank you, इम्तियाज साहब. And that's so nice. हाँ, ये जरूर है कि we are all hopeful. I would say it is wishful thinking. आप कह रहे हो UT है, but statehood is the next. जैसे कि कहा जाता है कि this election is a predecessor to the statehood. So don't know how far that will be correct. कल को क्या depend करता है सेंटर का attitude. But we are all hopeful that it would probably lead to statehood. It would probably lead to empowerment of the elected government and so on. With that, we come to the end, towards the end of the session. And I would request Bansa to sum up, unless somebody has a question. If there are any specific questions, otherwise I would request Bansa to summarize. Bansa, are you there? I think I'll have to call him. He's just dropped off. Would anybody want to add something? ठीक है. Okay. Right. I think Ban Sahab is just dropped off for something else. So are there any questions? Otherwise, we can sort of summarize this and close.
Sir, can I just make a
Yes.
small comment about
Yes.
the return of the Pandits?
Yes, Dr. Sir.
Right. After that, we can just
Yeah.
sum up the things.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the expulsion of the Pandits is concerned, there are many stories on both sides. From the majority community, there is a story. They have their point of view, and the minority community that has been exiled or pushed out of the valley, they too have their own stories, their own points. Now, the question of coming back of the Pandits to the valley, see, as far as my reading is concerned and my interaction with the people is concerned and overall observation is concerned, I have not yet met a person from the majority community, from the Muslim Brotherhood, who seems to be opposing the idea of return of the Kashmiri Pandits to the valley. Now, when Ogra Saab says that the majority community has to make sure and make the arrangements, so-called, and prove that the Pandits can come back to the valley and live amongst the majority community, it's very difficult to prove that point. That see, you cannot have perfection in a society. The world is imperfect by its own nature. So either one has to accept the word that all Kashmiris, majority communities, and as well as Sikhs and other minorities, they are all pained by all what happened in 1990s. That is the migration of the Pandits. There is no other way. There is no other metric by which you can gauge the sentiment or the practicality of the sentiment. Let me give an example. If you look at the patient from my that's what is called my profession, I will talk about that. If you look at the patient population of Kashmir, you will see and observe that most of the patients from the valley still prefer to go back to the Kashmiri Pandit doctors who are living outside of the valley, taking trouble to just move in, travel in trains, by aeroplanes, spending lots and lots of money on that. But they are more convinced because they understand that Pandit doctors are more affectionate towards us. They understand it in that way. They have a feeling of trust in the Pandit community. So is the case with all others. But the problem lies here that it's very difficult to prove. Now, if you put those types of as metrics, then it means that it will never be possible for the Pandits to come back to the valley, because you will never have a perfect situation, a perfect environment to live. We have been living for past 32 years here, despite the bloods, despite the violence, despite the terrorism, despite many things which are happening, untowardly things, despite all those troubles and tribulations, we have been living it. And that does not mean that we are all against Pandit brethren and we are all brainwashed by extremist ideology. That is absolutely not the case. The hardline ideology, of course, is surviving there and will survive. But it does not, as per the data, it does not go more than 4% of the population world over. If you look at every corner of the world, right? These are the data. These have been proven by the biggest institutions and the biggest minds of the world. So saying that you have to work for Kashmiris to return back, I think the ball lies in the court of the Kashmiri Pandits. If they have the what you call, if they are convinced, or if they have that much of love towards the valley, they can come anytime they want. Last year, or 4 or 5 years back, when that Kashmiri Pandit came and opened his shop in the downtown area, you look at the response of the people. Now, what else you want from that? It's not necessary that every single person you meet will tell you, no, you Pandit, you should come back, we are just, no, life is moving, life goes on, we have our own problems to deal with. This point cannot remain all the time on your mind that my brother, see, I'm in touch with all my Pandit brothers and sisters and Pandit friends, some classmates, batchmates, whom I have not seen for 30 years, right? But I just try to trace them through Facebook and other. And what makes me to do that? It is basically that, you see, Kashmiris as a whole historically have never been violent people. They have never been violent. This violence is an external thing which has been imposed on us. And thank God that we, the majority of the Kashmiris, both Pandits as well as the Muslims, we have not embraced the idea of violence to the extent that is being portrayed. So I think we need to just take a deep breath and think about it with cool mind, and then probably think about coming back to the valley and living amicably with us, and the way we live it, the way we can live it, you can also live it. That's it.
I think
Thank
it's
you.
more of a chicken and egg story. It's more of
Absolutely.
establishing
Can I add?
credibility.
Can I add a line?
Yes, Raji.
It's too late, but I will just briefly add. See, the issue of Pandit Exodus isn't about the physical return or the acceptance by the communities involved. It's about addressing the larger unspoken narrative of the collective consciousness that allowed such a tragedy to happen. This silence has persisted for too long, and now it's time for society to acknowledge the pain, take responsibility, and work towards healing and reconciliation. True justice, in my understanding, and the justice and healing will come only when there's a collective effort to remember, reflect, and act towards ensuring such events don't repeat. So it's not about they returning back. many of those people who left that time.
So how do you
It's
gauge
about
that?
something else.
What is the metric? What is the metric of gauging that collective responsibility and collective consciousness? How do you gauge that?
See, that's why we are that's why we are debating this, because there was no metric at that time to gauge.
There's no metric yet, because this is a psychological what you're talking about. This is a psychological issue, and this is all subjectivity, and subjectivity has never been measured.
No, it's not. Because at that time, when a minority was being thrown out, the entire society was silent.
No, and the
And
society
that was the reason.
was not
That
silent
was one of
because
the reasons why people had to flee during nights, because the society
there
was
was
not cooperative.
Sir,
Okay,
sir, there was an
What has
episode.
happened?
There was an
No,
episode
what
quite
I'm saying
recently,
is
sir.
what has
There was
happened
an episode.
has happened.
There was an
It's the
episode
time now,
quite
the
recently
same society.
Okay,
when
Dr. we have
a
Dr.
when a
Latif.
sick when a sick lady was assassinated here, right? And then the Sikh community came out. They said that the majority community should come out en masse and just condemn it, which they did. Obviously, I also went to that Sikh family, and I also gave my statement there. But the problem is, you understand, it's very difficult sometimes to come out openly, because I don't know what your age is, but I know what was the situation during the 90s. It was very difficult to speak out against the guns. Not the guns there were two types of guns from the security people and guns from the other side. It was very dangerous for the people to speak. Sometimes there are some compulsions which make people silent, right? So that should not be construed as a what you call the Stillschweig in German, right?
So
I hope that you will understand that Kashmiris are most willing for you to come
that
out.
is what probably the whole dialogue is about, that people need to talk about it. I think 90% of the pain goes off when we talk about it.
Sunil,
Yes.
I think Qazi Sahib, you made a very valid point. The point is slightly more nuanced. The nuanced is that you still hear the narrative of one man being responsible for encouraging the migration of the Kashmiri Pandits. And nothing hurts more than that, which is Jagmohan. And I can tell you, my brother was in the army, and as the luck would have been, he was posted in Badami Bagh at that time, in a fairly senior position. He just could help to get his uncle to Badami Bagh, but he could not help him to get a government vehicle or an army vehicle to move from Srinagar to Jammu. So there needs to be this addressing of demolishing of this narrative that the collective wisdom of the entire Kashmiri Pandit community of 5 lakh people cannot vest in Jagmohan. For God's sake. It's not possible.
I agree with you. But
therefore, that narrative jo hai, that is what is hurting. When I hear people saying that Jagmohan, and I know Jagmohan, remember, Qazi Sahab, as a student, I protested against Jagmohan when he was the DDA vice chairman during emergency in Turkman Gate. I led the procession. I was taken to the Turkman Gate, Tughlaq Road police station, kept there for a day, and then, of course, released. I was studying in Delhi at that time, the JNU campus. So what I'm saying is, ye jo narrative hai, this is what is hurting to begin with.
Sir, I agree with your point. I don't disagree with your point. That's what I said from both sides. From both sides, there is a story to tell.
Let me come to the other point. If you look at the number of Pandits who migrated, unless I am wrong, almost 30 to 40% Pandits migrated after Jagmohan ceased to be governor. Jagmohan was governor just for 6 months.
Some are migrating even now.
So more Pandits migrated after the Jagmohan ceased to be governor. So there is this larger narrative of there are multiple reasons. I wouldn't go. It is already 9:30 now.
So in the interest of the time,
I must have my drink now. But what I'm saying, having said that, as I said in my opening remarks, There has to be an acknowledgement by the majority. You see, in all such situations, let me give you an example of Nelson Mandela. What did he do in South Africa? Apart from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, he visited the homes of the white minorities who were the rulers to tell the blacks that now that you are in majority, you are the rulers, but take care of the whites who were otherwise rulers till yesterday. He wore the jersey which the blacks would not wear because that was supporting the whites, the rugby team. So the point I'm making is there are more nuances to it, but the way forward is the acknowledgement by the pundits that
How
the
do you?
Muslims have suffered.
That's
That the
what my point
Muslims
is.
have suffered and
Sir,
have suffered
that's what,
previously.
sir,
The
sir,
pundits
sir,
have
that's
suffered.
what,
There we agree with you.
sir, that's
No,
what my point is.
please
Acknowledgement
don't
is
make it
acknowledgement.
acknowledgement.
Who should acknowledge
एक
it?
मिनट
Should
सराफ साहब
should
wants to
every
say something.
should every
just a minute, sir, just a minute, please, sir.
Should every Muslim person
Please,
from the
please,
state
yeah,
come
please,
and do the bayah and say yes,
please,
I acknowledge it,
Okay.
or
No,
you want some one person to acknowledge it?
no. Let
How?
us,
What is the matrix?
yeah, matrix is very simple.
Okay, sir, just a minute.
There are institutions which articulate a certain narrative. The masjids are the most powerful ones. The teachers, the universities are the powerful ones. The teachers are the powerful ones. I do not see, except of course the recent one by Omar Farooq of that he welcomes Kashmir. What I'm saying is there is still that in their heart of hearts, I agree with you, they want us.
हाँ जी
But that
सराफ साहब, you wanted to say something.
Just 10 seconds, sir, 10 seconds.
सराफ साहब, you wanted to say something.
Sorry,
Yes, sir,
sorry.
10 seconds.
Huh.
Well, what Dr. Saab says about my exodus, my throwing out of Kashmir, and how I feel it is an element of passive violence. My suggestion is this is a very touchy subject. It can't be made in a passing way, in a dialogue between two. Please, my request is, Sunil ji,
Yes.
you just arrange a separate program.
It deserves a separate session altogether.
Please make it a bullet point agenda for only one. Then we discuss it.
I
It
agree.
can't be
I
dialogue
agree.
between two, and certainly it
We will
can't be in
discuss
this way.
Right.
I have a
I
serious objection
agree.
with it. I resent it. I say it. I take it as a element of a passive violence. Please, we will have it another day. Don't make passive reference. It's a very touchy subject. It's an existential subject for me. I will not allow you to be.
No, it's for us also. No, you are mistaken. You are mistaken, Saraf sir.
It is for everybody. It is for
It's very
everybody.
important for us
We'll
also.
leave it other day.
No, I
Please,
agree.
we'll
I
leave it.
agree. I am the first person to go for a debate on this.
Yes.
A thorough debate.
Absolutely.
Yes, a thorough debate. A thorough debate.
Please,
And a
hold
very well
Sunil
informed debate.
ji,
Emotions
We
and
will hold our thoughts for it.
emotional loose talk will not take us
Absolutely.
forward.
It's a very touchy subject. We must hold our
It's
thoughts.
touchy for us also. It's touchy for us also.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. This is the
It's
point.
touchy for us also.
Imtiaz
All
sir, you wanted to
my
say something?
closest
ji,
friends are
I have
outside.
not
They
said
are not able to come
I said that
to my house and come
It is
to
for
have.
both sides.
Yeah,
So we will
I
leave
agree
it
with
for
you.
other
I
day.
agree.
Hold our thoughts
I
for
agree.
a moment.
I
I do
agree.
it for the next day in an elaborate manner,
I agree.
in a bullet point, 1 point program.
Okay.
And to me,
Absolutely
is a
right.
one
Saraf sir,
Imtiaz sir,
Saraf sir,
10 seconds and then
ji,
we'll wind up.
10 seconds.
Most willing.
I will request everybody to mute their mic, please, because
Yes.
noise आ रहा है.
Hmm.
इसमें अभी कुछ बातें हुई है. Partly I agree with the डॉक्टर साहब और सराफ साहब या ओगरा साहब. 100% हम यही बात कर रहे हैं. 90s में क्या हुआ? हम दो चीजों पे फेल हो गए. एक, हमने एक ऐसा नैरेटिव उठा दिया, जगमोहन नैरेटिव, जिसकी कोई हकीकत नहीं है. क्योंकि जगमोहन की अपॉइंटमेंट पे जब फारूक अब्दुल्ला ने रिजाइन किया तो उससे पैनिक हुआ. जगमोहन ने तभी यहाँ पे ज्वाइन नहीं किया था जब 20 जनवरी को मास माइग्रेशन शुरू हुई. जगमोहन फैक्टर कहां पे आता? ही वॉज नॉट इन्वॉल्व. बाद में इन्वॉल्व हो गया क्योंकि जैसे ओगरा साहब ने बता दिया कि जगमोहन की एक छवि बन चुकी थी जो दिल्ली में उसने किया था. तो उसके डर से उनको लगा कि जब ये कश्मीर आएंगे, वही फारूक अब्दुल्ला का भी कंसर्न उस वक्त था जब उसने रिजाइन किया कि ये यहाँ पे खून खराबा करेगा। एक तो वो चीज, दूसरा नैरेटिव जो हम बहुत गलत तरीके से हर हमेशा ये कर रहे हैं कि 87 इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर ऑल द मेस, 87 इलेक्शंस, विच इज नॉट करेक्ट। वहां वो स्टार्ट हुआ, 87 ने ट्रिगर किया, 87 वाज नॉट द ओनली रीजन। अब फाइनली मैं एक बात कहना चाहता हूं कश्मीरी पंडित भाइयों के लिए, ये पहली दफा माइग्रेशन नहीं हुई, इससे पहले भी 2 दफा माइग्रेशन हो चुकी थी हिस्ट्री में, और हमारी हिस्ट्री हमेशा नॉन वायलेंट रही है। वी हैव अ हिस्ट्री ऑफ 5000 इयर्स रिटन हिस्ट्री, दैट इज द राजतरंगी। उसमें भी बहुत सारे जगहों पे वायलेंस हुई है। तो ये जो हुआ अभी कश्मीरी पंडित भाइयों का मसला जहां पे है, कश्मीर कल्चरली और भाईचारे ह्यूमैनिटी भी अगर हम देखेंगे इनकम्प्लीट है पंडित भाइयों के बगैर। मसला ये हुआ है कि कश्मीरी पंडित हजरात डेफिनेटली जब जो एग्रीमेंट रहता है उसकी पोजीशन अलग होती है। हम भी एग्रीमेंट, हमने भी मुसीबतें उठाई है।
Everybody is aggrieved and everybody is in trouble.
हाँ, everybody.
So it cuts both ways. It cuts both ways. That is why we said we'll have a separate discussion on this.
उसमें एक लाइन में इसमें ऐड करना चाहता हूँ इसमें कि इसका सोल्यूशन क्या है। देखिए अभी अशोक साहब ने बता दिया है कि माइनॉरिटी को भी मेजॉरिटी की मिजरीज को एक्सेप्ट करना पड़ेगा और मॉर्न करना पड़ेगा, और मेजॉरिटी को भी एक्सेप्ट करना पड़ेगा कि माइनॉरिटी के साथ गलत हुआ।
Accept.
तो ये चीजें हैं, ये चीजें
I think the acknowledgement is a bigger factor.
बिगर। और लास्टली लास्ट लाइन, अगर कश्मीरी पंडित भाई गवर्नमेंट के पे नजर रख रहे हैं कि गवर्नमेंट विल कम एंड रिजॉल्व दिस इश्यू, दैट इज नॉट पॉसिबल। ये भाइयों का मसला है, या भाइयों को बैठ के ये मसला हल करना पड़ेगा। गवर्नमेंट विल make it a point to for votes and all those things for their political purposes, but it is Mr. Ashok and me who has to sit down and resolve the issue. Forgive the past, and move ahead. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's what.
Yeah, that sums it up very nicely, and I think we're all getting late. Time for dinner. नहीं खाया, काफी late हो रहा है. So it was a very fruitful session.
So after a long time we have met. This is everybody has been busy with our own affairs.
Sir, हमें कश्मीरी पंडित entrepreneurs लाने हैं कश्मीर.
I kept a leave. I postponed my patient today. She was to go undergo surgery because I wanted to meet you and see your face after a long time.
Thank you, Qazi sir. Wonderful to hear you.
Thank you.
So, I think we'll have more interactive sessions in future. Thanks everybody for your time. I will stop the recording now. And
Sunil, I think Latif sir wanted to speak last word.
Okay, Latif sir.
Dr. Latif, not Latif.
Because he looks handsome on the Zoom, so I wanted to hear him. I don't know him though.
Dr. Latif, you will need to unmute.
Yes, no.
Shakal dekha hai with us, LDF sir. Here he is.
Sir.
Respected chair, and there is no chair. The chairman has already left.
Yeah.
So the other people who are already now, online, I tell my greetings, assalamu alaikum, adabars to all of you. I have been listening to all of you, very patiently, and I have learned a lot from you people. But I just want to make 2 or 3 points. One is that our time was supposed to be 1.5 hours. Now it's already 2 hours, maybe more than 2 hours, and we must, restrict ourselves to the time limit.
Yeah.
I was intending to fight elections. In fact, I had talked to so many political parties and many political leaders, and I withdrew at the last moment. I think 12th was our last day for nomination, so I did not file my nomination. During this period, I visited many villages and many towns, and I talked to a lot of people, whether I should contest my elections or not. Before that, I would like to give my introduction that I'm a doctor by profession.
I will give that, sir. Sir, I will give that.
I'm a professor of medicine, and I have been teaching medical people for the last 10 years. And I'm 62, and I'm almost retiring in a couple of months. So I thought, why not to go for the public service and see what I can do for the people. I gave my own manifesto to the people, and my manifesto was primarily related to drinking water and horticulture, because I belong to a constituency which is horticulture-based constituency, that is Griri Wagura. So I gave them a elaborate, my manifesto, how I would like to work for these things. And I got a feedback from the constituency that these things are not going to work. The reason for that is that, going back to the history of Kashmir, in 1953, Sheikh Abdullah was an elected prime minister and he was deposed. This was the biggest blunder government of India had done with the Kashmiris. Although his family, Farooq Abdullah, Umar Abdullah, might have forgot it, but people will never forget it, and they have never forgot it. This was one mistake done by the Congress government. Subsequently, in 1987, the elections were rigged. Those elections, they pushed the Kashmiris to the wall, and they were forced to start a violent struggle. So this was another mistake which was done again by central government and in cohorts with the local government. Now, today, what you are talking about, that everything is, perfect. I don't believe so. Because the removal of Article 370 and the Article 35A is the biggest blow on Kashmiri psyche. Kashmiris, I don't think they are going to forget it. You may not be able to understand it now, but 10 years later, 20 years down the line, you will see the repercussions. If Jawaharlal Nehru has one way tortured Kashmiris or, hurt their feelings, hurt their ego, the present government has hurt them in a different way. What Kashmiris now perceive is that this is completely an arrogance, a psychological arrogance. The government of India is forcing us to come under pressure, and it's a coercive, peace. I think its repercussions will be seen over a period of time. I don't think that the peace which you are seeing right now is a real peace, because people now you can see, you are yourself all intelligent people. You see how the people are flocking, with Engineer Rashid. And Engineer Rashid yesterday, I think a couple of days before, he was even talking of plebiscite. We will do plebiscite from Katwa to Pakistan, Azad Kashmir. So, and the people were saying, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Doctor, you will need to be brief because we're getting late.
And this, my point is that the Kashmiris' psyche and their ego is again and again shattered by the government of India. And I don't think this is going to last long. I think I see some, whatever the verdict of the elections, but the things in the coming years may not be as you expect. That's what I want to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sir. So with that, I would want to sum up now because we've already overshot time. I think we had a very, very fruitful discussion, noted down some of the points, especially things like we did touch upon major points like youth engagement, youth empowerment, and the drug menace. So we'll probably need a separate session on drug menace. And I would also think, as Dr. Qazi said, that we would probably have a separate session on return and rehabilitation of Kashmiri Pandits and maybe reconciliation. So with that, I would want to end this session. Yes, the mood has moved. What came out clearly is the mood has moved from a point of violence to at least a point where people are we've moved from the boycott culture to people are willingly participating in the elections, and they want to be a part of the democracy. They want to be a part of the election. They are looking forward, because I think people have more or less accepted that if we are going back to statehood, if we are going back to reversing the clock, whether it's Article 370 or whatever, if we have to go back to a better status, the only way is democratic process. And with that, I would actually repeat my opening sentence that probably people are realizing that it is a ballot which will counter the bullet now. With that, thank you once again, everybody, and we'll sign off for the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.